Chapter 8. The Sign Follows, covering the year 1929. In October of 1929, the New York stock market crashed, plunging the United States into the worst economic nightmare it had ever seen. Thousands of banks locked their front doors while the helpless bankers tiptoed out the back, one step ahead of their angry depositors. Eventually, the Great Depression touched every area of the economy. Factories either cut back production or closed entirely. Farmers tightened their belts or went bankrupt. Unemployment rose sharply until 1 out of every 4 American workers languished in idleness. Although William Branham's job at the Jeffersonville Public Service Department paid only 20 cents an hour, he considered himself lucky to be working at all. He still planned to someday devote his life to fur trapping in the mountains out west, but for now his paycheck was needed at home. His father's health was failing due to his continued heavy drinking. Charles Branham, now 38 years old, was not only out of work, his chances of getting a steady job and keeping it were slim. On November 2, 1929, Ella Branham bore her 10th and last child. Finally, after 9 sons, she had a girl. Ella named her daughter Fay Dolores Branham, but she called her by her middle name. So, out of the 11 Branhams living in one house, only Billy had full-time employment. Billy felt an obligation to help support the rest of his family, at least for a few more years. Working for Public Service Indiana agreed with Billy's temperament. His job kept him outside year-round, and the tasks varied from week to week, so that he seldom was bored. One week he might be digging ditches to lay gas mains. Another week he might be reading meters or repairing gas leaks, or climbing power poles to repair electrical transmission lines. The only part of the job he disliked was turning off the electricity on customers who couldn't pay their bills, and with the Depression deepening, that happened far too often to suit him. As glad as Billy was for his public service company job, still $8 a week did not stretch far in a household of 11 people. So when he was offered part-time work as a deputy game warden for the state of Indiana, he jumped at the chance. It meant he would get out of town on a regular basis to patrol the backwoods. The thought of being paid for doing what he loved to do anyway seemed perfect. In reality, it never turned out that way. His pay was supposed to be a commission on the number of tickets he issued to game law violators, but Billy could never bring himself to write out a ticket. He felt that more good could be accomplished by sitting down with a poacher and lecturing him on the benefits of game conservation and the importance of obeying state laws. In effect, Billy ended up donating his time, but to him, the satisfaction he gained from getting out of town and tramping the wooded countryside was reward enough. One day Billy was scheduled to patrol Henryville State Park, 20 miles north of Jeffersonville. As soon as he boarded the Greyhound bus, a strange feeling swept over him, like a pressure, almost as though some unseen force was pushing against him. The bus was crowded. Passengers filled every seat, and many stood in the aisle. Billy jostled to the center of the bus, stopping between a hefty middle-aged woman and a sailor. The woman looked up and said, "Hello," as the bus rolled away from the station. Billy answered, "Howdy do," and gazed out the window, watching the houses glide by. That strange force was pushing against him more strongly now. It seemed to be coming from the heavy-set woman. Out of the corner of his eye, Billy could tell she was staring directly at his face. She made him feel uncomfortable. Soon she started a conversation. "Are you an officer?" Billy wore his game warden uniform with a pistol tucked into the holster at his side. "I'm a conservation officer," he returned. "You're lonesome, aren't you?" Billy masked his surprise. "No, ma'am," he lied. "Well, you're not at your home," she said. "I'm at as much of a home as I've got." She shook her head. "No, you were born for the West." That shocked Billy as much as if she had poured ice water over his head. "Say, what are you talking about?" She said, "Maybe I'd better explain myself. You see, I'm an astrologer." Billy groaned inwardly, thinking, "Here's another one of them funny people." He moved away from her, closer to the sailor. She followed him, staggering a little with the rocking of the bus. She said, "I'd like to talk with you a few minutes." Billy kept looking ahead, acting like he didn't hear her. She persisted. "Could I speak with you just a moment?" Billy ignored her. "This is not very gentlemanly of me, but I don't want to talk to her." Yet the woman would not leave him alone. "Say, you, conservation officer, could I speak with you a minute?" Finally Billy turned and said curtly, "What do you want?" He felt guilty for acting so rude, but he really did not want to talk with an astrologer. He remembered what that gypsy fortune-teller had said to him at the carnival, and the memory made him uneasy. The woman asked, "Are you a Christian?" "No," he snapped, "and what's it to you?" She shrugged. "Oh, I just wondered, did you know that you were born under a sign?" Bill swallowed hard. "Look, lady, I don't want to know nothing about that, see? I know I'm being short with you, but I mean it. I don't want to know nothing about it." She retreated a little way. "Oh, don't be so hard." "Well, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but I don't know nothing about any religious things, and I don't want to know." Bill turned away from her and stared past the sailor towards the front of the bus. "My, you shouldn't act like that. This has nothing to do with religion. I'm on my road to Chicago to see my son, who is a Baptist minister. I work in the White House. Did you know that the position of the stars affects events here on Earth?" "I know nothing about it," Billy said. She said, "There's a sailor standing in front of you. Ask him if the moon doesn't control the tides." "I've got sense enough to know that," Bill snapped. The woman continued, "Well, there are many other heavenly bodies that have significance on Earth. If I could tell you exactly when you were born, would you believe me?" Billy frowned uncomfortably. "You can't do it in the first place." She smiled. "Oh, yes, I can. You were born on April 6, 1909, at 5 o'clock in the morning." Billy's gruff facade crumbled into astonishment. "That's right. Now tell this sailor when he was born." She said, "I can't do it. You see, you were born under a sign. Haven't ministers ever talked to you about this?" "I have nothing to do with preachers, nothing at all." The woman's eyes drifted away for a moment as her mind followed that thought. Isn't it strange that preachers wouldn't know that? Billy repeated, "I don't fool around where they're at." She again focused her eyes on him. "Look, I want to tell you something. You were born under a sign as a gift to mankind. If you could only recognize it." He interrupted, "Maybe I'll be another Daniel Boone. I like to hunt, and I was born in Kentucky." "No, that isn't what I'm talking about." "Well, maybe I'll be a businessman. I've got a grammar school education." She did not seem amused. "That's not what I'm talking about. I don't know what you'll be, but I can see by your aura that you were born as a gift. Do you remember the story about the wise men who were led by a star to the baby Jesus?" "I don't know nothing about religion." "But you have heard about the wise men coming to see the baby Jesus, haven't you?" "Yes." "Well, what are wise men?" "Oh, they were just wise men. That's all I know." She explained. "The wise men were the same thing I am. They were astrologers, stargazers. You know, before God does anything on earth, he always declares it in the heavens first. That's what he did when Jesus was born. 3 heavenly bodies lined up and formed a conjunction that caught the attention of some astrologers living in the East. One of them was from the lineage of Ham, another Shem, and the other Japheth, the 3 sons of Noah. They represented all the peoples of the earth. Each of these 3 men traveled west separately, not knowing the others were coming until they met in Jerusalem. Then they went to Bethlehem and found the baby Jesus. They knew Jesus was the one they were looking for because of the color of his aura. You know what an aura is, don't you? It's the supernatural light of the soul. Everyone has an aura. They come in different colors, and each color means something. Gold means a gift from God. So these 3 wise men worshipped Jesus and gave him gifts. They departed just as those 3 heavenly bodies were separating into their individual orbits. In commemoration of the greatest gift God ever gave to mankind, his own son Jesus, every time those 3 heavenly bodies come back in line, God sends a lesser gift to man. You were born at such a conjunction. You have a gold aura surrounding you. That's how I know the day and the hour of your birth, and that's how I know your destiny lies in the West. Out of courtesy, Bill had tried to listen patiently, but by now he had heard enough. Lady, all I know is that I am a game warden of Indiana, and I'm doing the best I can. I'm not religious, and I don't want to hear no more about it." Billy moved towards the front of the bus, putting the sailor between himself and the astrologer, effectively ending the conversation. Still, the incident was not easily forgotten, and it troubled his thoughts on more than one occasion. His life seemed so different from most people he knew. But a gift? What could that mean? And what was it about him that attracted these strange people? The fortune-teller had said she saw a light following him. This astrologer had called it an aura. Billy could not put it together. The questions tumbled over and over around in his mind like cream in a butter churn. Why was he so different? Why had he sensed that acute pressure as soon as he boarded the Greyhound bus? And why was he so miserable when the subject of religion came up? Was he afraid? Maybe God was looking for him and he was trying to hide. And what did that woman mean when she said his destiny lay in the West?